In a lavish restaurant, a single spilled glass of wine cost a powerful CEO his entire career and reputation. Golden light from crystal chandeliers spilled down shimmering across the polished marble floor of an upscale restaurant. The clink of silverware rang like tiny bells, blending with low, elegant laughter together, forming a symphony of luxury. The scene looked like a perfect painting. Ruby red wine glowing in crystal glasses. Tailored suits, crisp and sharp evening gowns glittering as they hugged every curve under the dazzling lights. And then, a small accident happened. Anna, the young waitress, in her simple uniform hand still marked with drops of dishwater, set down a tray. Her fingers trembled. The stem of an expensive crystal glass filled with rare wine worth a fortune slipped. Time slowed like a scene from a movie. Drops of deep red spilled. Splattered. Spread. Seeping into the sleek black suit of Richard, the powerful CEO, the most important VIP guest of the night. A single second of dead silence, then the scrape of a chair. Richard shot to his feet, his face flushed, his eyes sharp with fury. His voice cracked through the air, booming merciless. "Do you have any idea how much this suit costs?" The entire restaurant froze. Heads turned. Forks stopped midair. Even the music seemed to fade into the distance. Every eye fell on one person, Anna. She bowed her head, trembling, fumbling with a napkin, trying to blot the stain. But the more she wiped, the more it spread like a wound that would never heal. Richard yanked the napkin from her hands and hurled it to the floor. The sound was like a slap across the air. "Useless. You can't even handle the simplest task. Do you really think you belong here, or are you just some lowlife clinging to scraps for a cheap paycheck?" Anna bit her lip. She didn't speak, but her eyes shimmered heavy with tears. Her face burned half from shame, half from the rising tide of anger. No one at the nearby table stood up. No one defended her. They just watched as though it were entertainment. A middle-aged man nearby smirked, swirling his glass. Pathetic. An embarrassment to this restaurant. The whispers started sharp enough to cut. Anna wanted to disappear. Her fingers dug into her apron nails, pressing so deep they hurt. Richard wasn't done. He stepped forward, pointing a finger straight at her face. "People like you should be sweeping the streets, not daring to touch our world. Get out now." His roar made silverware clatter from startled hands. The luxury setting twisted into a cruel stage play where one fragile girl was dragged into the spotlight as the crowd's amusement. Anna staggered back. One step, then another. Like a sparrow with torn wings nowhere to hide. But then a phone was raised, quietly, recording everything. Recording. Richard didn't notice. He kept unleashing his rage, each word like a blade stabbing Anna's heart, while also etching itself into the lens capturing it all. Anna's eyes shimmered with tears. Yet deep inside a spark flickered. Not because she felt strong, but because fate had chosen this moment to ignite a turning point. A moment that within hours the whole world would see. And the powerful man named Richard would pay dearly. Not just in money, but with the very dignity and power he had flaunted with arrogance. The screen fades to black. Heavy breaths echo in the dark, and then words appear. This wasn't just a small accident, it was the beginning of a storm. Outside, the city glowed bright against the night. Streetlights stretched like ribbons of stars, cars trailed in endless lines, and the sound of horns echoed somewhere in the rush of humanity. In the heart of this restless metropolis stood a towering glass skyscraper. At its base was the place the elite praised as a culinary heaven, the restaurant Le Mirage. Step inside and it felt like another world. Crystal chandeliers sparkled like constellations. The polished marble floor reflected every leather shoe, every confident stiletto heel that touched down. Gentle piano music drifted from a corner, blending with the sweet fragrance of imported candles, notes of vanilla and cedarwood in the air. Each dining table looked like a painting. Spotless white linen, silver cutlery, gleaming crystal glasses shimmering with deep red wine. And within that world, two very different lives existed. At the center, like a blazing star, was Richard Hale, a powerful CEO of a massive real estate empire. He wasn't just wealthy. He was notorious for his arrogance. His Italian-tailored suit fit perfectly over his tall frame. A silk tie knotted tight, white gold cufflinks catching the light. Every raised brow, every flick of his hand carried weight. To the other diners, Richard was like a king enthroned, able to decide another's fate with a single word. On the outer edges of that glittering space was Anna Carter, the young waitress. Her uniform was plain, a white shirt, slightly faded. A black apron with faint stains that never washed out completely. Her worn flats scuffed with every careful step placed lightly so as not to be heard. Her brown hair was tied neatly at the back, with a few strands slipping down, sticking to her cheek with sweat. Her hands, dry and rough, bore small calluses from hours of scrubbing dishes and wiping tables. Anna didn't take this job out of passion for service, but out of necessity. Once a promising literature student, she had to abandon school when her father died, suddenly leaving behind a sick mother and a younger brother still in school. From lecture halls, she stepped into kitchens, from books full of words to the smell of grease and shouted orders. Her smile, when it appeared, was rare and forced. To the wealthy customers, Anna was nothing more than a moving shadow there to set plates down gone once the table was cleared. No one cared about the dreams she had left behind or the nights she still studied foreign languages in the cramped corner of her room. At Le Mirage, she wasn't Anna. She was simply the waitress. And in this place, power belonged to men like Richard. When Richard entered, the entire restaurant seemed to shift its breath. The manager bowed low. Staff hurried to prepare the VIP table. Guests stole glances, a few even sneaked photos with their phones. Everyone knew this was the man who could shutter a business with one signature or send property values soaring across a whole district with a single nod. Anna, meanwhile, stood quietly by the table, jotting down orders, steadying her hand so it wouldn't shake as she poured the wine. Her heartbeat pounded in her ears, blending with the piano, but no one noticed. The lavish scene looked like a grand stage, but on that stage only a few stars shone brightly. The rest, people like Anna, were merely background actors replaceable at any moment. But no one knew the stage was about to change. One slip, one drop of red wine, one shouted insult would spark a flame of outrage. And when that flame ignited, it would burn through the false glow Richard had wrapped around himself. Because in a world that seems unfair, sometimes a single fragile moment is enough to turn everything upside down. The piano still played softly in the background, but to Anna, each note felt like a wire pulled tight around her chest. After Richard had humiliated her over the spilled wine, the air inside the restaurant had changed. The glances people threw her way no longer carried indifference. They were sharp with contempt, laced with mockery, hungry for entertainment. Anna bowed her head, picking up the napkin from the floor, hiding her trembling hand behind her apron. She wanted to vanish, but work didn't allow that. The manager's cold look cut into her, wordless but clear. "Why are you still standing there? Get back to serving." She moved to another table, her tray heavy with ornate porcelain dishes. Each plate she set down with care. But one diner, emboldened by the scene with Richard, decided he'd found a new amusement. "Hey, waitress, my chopsticks aren't clean. Wipe them again." The voice was loud, deliberate, drawing laughter from the entire table. Anna examined the chopsticks, just a faint speck of dust. Still, she quietly replaced them. The group roared their glasses, clinking, their laughter swelling. To them, she was nothing more than a plaything. Before she could catch her breath, another voice rang out from across the room. "You there, hurry up! My wine glass isn't full. This soup is cold. What kind of service is this?" Each command, each insult struck like arrows. Every step she took invited another jeer, another demand. None of it was real service. They just wanted to watch her stumble, panic, and laugh at the sight. And her co-workers. They looked away. Pretended to polish tables, carry trays, anything to avoid stepping in. A few whispered to each other, "Careful. Don't get dragged into this. The CEO's furious. If you cross him, you're done." That silence cut deeper than the insults. Anna understood. No one wanted to be a hero in a restaurant where power belonged to the wealthy. But her chest ached all the same. Between the mocking voices, Anna sought a moment's refuge. Passing a tall glass wall, she caught her reflection. Pale face, messy hair, eyes hollow with exhaustion. Was this still the bright literature student she once was? The grandeur of the room warped in her vision. The golden lights burned like fire. The scented candles smothered like smoke. The clink of silverware rang harsh mocking, reminding her she didn't belong here. At the VIP table, Richard seized another chance to twist the knife. As Anna poured more wine, he smirked. "Careful this time. Don't make the entire restaurant clean up after your clumsiness." Chuckles rippled through the room. Someone even exaggeratedly shielded their glass as if she might spill again. The laughter spread, stifling, piercing her skin like 100 needles. She bit down hard on her lip and pressed on. But inside, the pressure swelled, ready to burst. She thought of her mother at home, medicine bills unpaid. Her younger brother waiting on the money she sent just to keep him in school. The abandoned dream of her books still tucked away in an old desk drawer. All of it shredded apart by the bitter laughter of the rich. Her breath shortened. Her heart raced. Sweat dampened the back of her shirt. The calls continued. "Move faster. Are you deaf? Shameful. What kind of place hires staff like this?" At one point, her tray nearly slipped. Glasses clinked dangerously, making the guests' eyes widen. Richard let out a cruel laugh. "Unbelievable. This is premium service. What a joke." "This?" Anna froze. Every eye in the room bore down on her. For one crushing moment, she felt small, powerless, like a puppet jerked around for everyone's amusement. But then, something unexpected. Another phone rose into the air, then another. Some younger guests who at first wanted to record for fun fell quiet. their lenses focused, capturing every second. The image of Anna, tear-brimmed eyes, bowed head silently enduring the torrent of humiliation, was framed again and again. No one knew it yet, but these very moments would become evidence. A spark that would ignite a storm that would silence the mocking laughter, a storm that would upend the balance of power, a storm that would turn humiliation into strength. Anna didn't know this yet. To her, her heart only felt harder with each passing second. But the cameras were already rolling, and the world was about to witness everything. That night, as the golden lights of Le Mirage finally dimmed, Anna dragged herself back to her tiny room in a rundown neighborhood on the city's edge. The smell of wine still clung to her clothes, mixed with sweat and dish soap. Her hands trembled. Her eyes were swollen and red. She sat down on her bed, kicked off her worn-out shoes, and let the darkness swallow her whole. She didn't know that somewhere else millions of screens were lighting up. A short clip barely 2 minutes long had just been posted online by an anonymous diner. The title was simple: CEO humiliates waitress at Le Mirage. The video showed Richard crystal clear, his flushed face, his finger stabbing the air, his booming voice dripping with contempt. Beside him, Anna, small hunched, her tear-rimmed eyes lowered, still tried to remain polite, never lashing back. Within hours, the clip spread like wildfire across the internet. Comments poured in. "This is horrifying. Poor girl. Power doesn't give you the right to dehumanize someone. Does anyone know who she is? We need to help her." The hashtag #StandWithAnna appeared. Then it exploded. Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, everywhere you looked, the same images flooded in. Anna, head bowed, tears shining under the chandelier's glow. And opposite her, Richard's twisted face, ugly with arrogance. But the outrage didn't stop at sympathy. The internet dug deeper. Overnight, old photos and stories about Anna surfaced. Former classmates posted, "She was the top student in our class, always helped others. It's tragic she had to drop out." A professor wrote Anna had extraordinary literary talent. She deserved a brighter future. Suddenly, it was no longer just a viral clip of humiliation. It became a symbol of the injustice that ordinary people endure every single day. In her dark room, Anna had no idea. Her phone was still on silent. She sat curled up, hugging her knees, eyes shut tight, trying to block out the bitter laughter that still echoed in her head. But outside, the world was already calling her name. The next morning, when Anna arrived at the restaurant, everything felt different. Coworkers glanced at her with a mix of curiosity and envy. The manager frowned, juggling phone call after phone call from higher-ups. At the tables, customers whispered and pointed. Anna stood frozen, confused, until a colleague slipped her a phone. On the screen, thousands of notifications, millions of views, endless comments of sympathy and solidarity. Her heart clenched. The image of herself, tearful, fragile, humiliated, was no longer just a memory from one awful night. It now belonged to the world. For a moment, shame turned to fear. She didn't want to be remembered as a victim. She didn't want her whole life reduced to a clip of humiliation. But then, amid the flood of notifications, she saw a single message. "Anna, you are not alone. We're here for you." A small flicker of light sparked in her chest. Across town, Richard was staring at his own phone, his face pale. The front page headline blazed, "CEO Richard Hale humiliates waitress, viral clip, sparks outrage." His company's stock price was slipping. His photo was everywhere, buried beneath thousands of furious comments and mocking memes. He slammed his phone onto the desk, but the calls kept coming. The board demanded answers. Reporters hounded him. Some partners even announced they were reconsidering their contracts. The storm had begun, and at the center of it, Anna, the invisible waitress, was suddenly a symbol followed by millions. From nobody, she had become the face of a movement. But would that sudden spotlight bring her hope, or drag her into a far harsher fight? Because when truth comes to light, the powerful rarely bow quietly. And Richard, the man who once dismissed her as nothing, would not accept defeat. That morning, before the city had even woken up, the headlines were everywhere. CEO Richard Hale humiliates poor employee, viral clip sparks global outrage. Anna's bowed head, her tear-stained eyes frozen in stark contrast against Richard's furious face, and pointed finger filled every screen. Every headline cut like a knife. Every comment struck like a gavel in the courtroom of public opinion. On social media, the hashtag #StandWithAnna didn't just trend, it climbed to #1 worldwide. Millions shared the story, signing petitions demanding Richard apologize and step down. Memes and parody videos spread like wildfire, cutting and pasting his face onto scenes of mockery. At Richard's company, Hale Properties, chaos erupted. The stock plummeted, the charts flashing red like a freefall. Millions of dollars vanished in seconds. The phones of major shareholders rang endlessly. The same people who once toasted with him at parties now scowled furious, ready to tear his chair out from under him. On the 40th floor, sunlight streamed through glass walls, cold and merciless. Richard sat there, tie loosened, sweat beading at his brow. Across from him, the board of directors men who had once shaken his hand with smiles now glared with ice in their eyes. "Richard, what have you done?" one roared. "You've destroyed this company's image over a fit of rage. We're bleeding hundreds of millions, and worse, we're losing the public's trust." The slam of fists on the table echoed like gunshots. The air was thick, ready to explode. Richard snapped back, voice sharp, defensive. "It's just a clipped video, just a no-name waitress. You'd sacrifice me to please the mob." But no one flinched. The CFO slid a stack of reports across the table. "Don't you get it? No one believes you anymore. Investors are pulling out. Partners are walking away. The media won't stop. You're dragging the entire empire down with you." Outside the skyscraper, the press swarmed. Cameras flashed like lightning. Questions rained down. "Richard, do you have anything to say about humiliating your employee? Will you apologize to Anna? Rumors say you're about to be removed. Is that true?" The flashing bulbs blinded him. The shouts drowned out the wind. Richard emerged in dark glasses, his face strained, but he couldn't hide the tension. Each step he took was slow, heavy, like treading over the shattered pieces of his own dignity. And with each step, the crowd's roar grew louder. Each accusation dragged him deeper into the abyss. Meanwhile, in her tiny room, Anna clutched her phone, heart pounding. She watched Richard surrounded, watched the venom of public fury turn against him. Part of her trembled, but another part felt justice for the very first time. She was no longer invisible. The world saw her now. The world stood with her. And yet, in that moment, Anna understood this fight was far from over. A man like Richard, powerful, arrogant, would not bow easily. And the same light that lifted her up could also burn her down if she wasn't careful. In the cramped silence of her room, she squeezed her phone tighter. On the screen, a new notification flashed. Emergency meeting, the board of directors to decide Richard Hale's fate tomorrow. Only her heartbeat echoed in the dark, and one question loomed unanswered. Tomorrow? Who will win? The day of reckoning arrived. The board of directors announced that Richard was suspended pending a formal investigation. The news spread like wildfire. No longer did headlines celebrate his power, now they declared the fall of an arrogant titan. While the world watched Richard's downfall, another story quietly began to bloom. A major educational foundation, having learned of Anna's situation, decided to grant her a full scholarship. Not only would it cover her return to the university she once left behind, but it would also provide living expenses to support her family. The confirmation email glowed on her phone screen. Anna read it over and over, her hands trembling, tears streaming down her face. Her tiny, shabby room suddenly felt bright, not from the flickering neon light above, but from her radiant smile. A smile that had not graced her face in months of hardship. The next day, the cameras turned toward Anna again. But this time, they did not capture a waitress being humiliated. They captured a young woman in a crisp white blouse, hair neatly tied back, stepping forward with quiet strength. Behind her stood professors, old classmates, people who had always believed in her talent. Applause thundered. Cameras flashed. But Anna no longer bowed her head. She lifted her gaze, her eyes shining. And then she spoke, not trembling, not choking back tears. "I never thought I would become the center of a story like this. I once felt invisible, dismissed, unworthy. But today I stand here to say every person, no matter how small, deserves respect. Dignity cannot be bought with money, and sometimes a single tear is enough to wake the world." The hall fell silent. Then applause erupted, rolling, crashing like waves. In the corner, a young journalist scribbled notes, eyes gleaming. A new article was already forming, not about humiliation, but about the rise of a young woman who stood tall. Outside, sunlight flooded the city. The sky stretched wide and blue. Anna stepped out of the building, clutching the scholarship letter in her hand. Her steps were steady, firm. No longer the cautious shuffle of a waitress shamed in a glittering restaurant. They were the steps of someone who had reclaimed herself. But life does not pause at a single victory. Anna knew that when the public spotlight dimmed, the road ahead would still hold trials. There would be skeptical glances, whispered rumors, and Richard, the man who had once humiliated her, had not disappeared. He still lurked in the shadows of power. Anna lifted her eyes to the sky, breathing deeply. In her heart, fear had given way to something stronger. Faith. The camera slowly pulled back. Her figure shrank among the crowd, yet she shone like a lantern in the dark. Words appeared on the screen, quiet yet resonant, like an echo etched into memory. "Money can buy the lights, but only dignity can keep them burning." The screen faded to black. The audience's heartbeat skipped, and one final question lingered without answer. If it were you, would you stand with Anna, or remain silent like the crowd in that restaurant? The light on the screen softens. The noise of reporters, the roar of public opinion all fade away. Only silence remains. A gentle piano melody begins to play slow and steady like the rhythm of a heartbeat. The frame reveals Anna standing alone by the window. Afternoon sunlight pours through, painting the small room in gold. In her hands, the scholarship letter glimmers in the light. Her eyes close, her face serene. No longer marked by tears of humiliation, now lit with newfound confidence. This story reminds us, sometimes even a small act of injustice can spark the fire of justice. But more importantly, it shows that in the darkest moments there is always light. There is always hope. Anna's image slowly fades. A white background appears carrying a single line of text: "Dignity cannot be trampled." And you? Have you ever witnessed a moment when injustice was overturned? Have you ever dared to stand up, or at least dared to speak for someone else? A pause. The piano lingers, deep and resonant. Share your story in the comments below. Because who knows? Your story might become the inspiration someone out there is waiting for. If this story touched you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Together we can spread more human stories like this. And who knows? Maybe in the next video you'll find a piece of yourself within it. One final line appears quietly, yet echoes like a question carved into the heart. What will you do when you face injustice yourself?